this map. It's going to be Global Esports Pantheon attacking first. Water and Spanik, Zari and Brigade. It is going to be the Ryan Goats out of them first off, and Giant Esports defending with Tidawat on the Winston to start things out with.
This is interesting. I would dare say Giant have thrived more in the symmetric goats than the asymmetric goats, so we'll have to see how this one plays out for them.
Let's see now how Global Esports wants to rotate through the map. A decent amount of damage taken. You can see Tidawat there, 40% already, but a decent amount of damage healed back up.
They've actually steered themselves through that one relatively safely. Now moving in for their next rotation, this is where they will push for the point.
Now, this is where the Ryan pick for Inhyuk really has quite a decent amount of value as they play the choke.
Once you get up close and personal, that hammer becomes very, very scary. And look at this, Giant are split apart. Pichu and Rocket are just left out in the cold. At least they do trade back on back wall, and they find Water with the wrap around, and Pichu only just going down now. The fact that he and Rocket stayed alive for so long, playing point guard to one another, very nicely handled here for the time being. And now suddenly GE Pantheon are stuck up on the edge, trying to not get bumped off by Rocket, trying to somehow rotate back. Nice separate out. They can finish off Sakura's mech. This is going to be Global Esports Pantheon having to retreat.
And Tidawat gets a cash in on the early Primal Rage as well. He got such a quick ultimate there. And for Global Esports, you can see because they wanted to play quite aggressively, Backwall got caught on the back end because he's the last one that can't get in on time.
Whoa.
Nice pick on the Sergeant God.
That was brave, but Sergeant God at least got his grab out before going down, and off the back of that, actually, Giant do still have a numbers advantage there, at least before Sergeant God went down. That was a 5 versus 6 that GE Pantheon opted into.
And Giant Esports, they actually had a very interesting timing there because Sergeant God, if he doesn't get the Graviton Surge off in time, Global Esports probably run them over because they're starting to come into some defensive ultimates. Inhyuk has the Shatter as well. It's just the Graviton Surge that really puts Giant in a favorable position.
Defensive ultimates coming up on rotation. Oh dear, Rocket dead to that Earth Shatter. Pichu not able to save him. Throws that one out now. Backwall matches and Medic coming up with a sound barrier. This is where Global Esports can start to pull ahead a little bit. They do lose Inhyuk.
Another Primal.
Sun Series mech. Second Primal out of Tidawat rather. That's going to cue up the sound barrier, but Spanik not going to get saved by it. This is going to be a very big grab to come out of Water. Throws it out. I mean, I would say complete thin air. It did at least get Tidawat, but that's not high value, unfortunately, as Pichu finds backwall. And Global Esports are actually in full retreat now. They're getting routed here if they're not careful.
And the one big advantage that Global Esports did actually have was in Inhyuk's Shatter. He did land it down. He managed to take down Rocket, but they couldn't get enough other members. The Transcendence from Pichu was able to answer it very quickly. Tidawat then gets the second Primal Rage of the game, knocks Spanik off the map as well, plays a lot of disruption against Global Esports, and they weren't able to find other really miserable picks. Going to the next push now, Sergeant God does, or at least will, have a Graviton Surge pretty soon.
Same rotation again by Global Esports Pantheon as what they did the original time around. And it cost them about 1.5 minutes. Now they've only got about a minute left.
This is where you got to keep your eyes on Sergeant God. They have the ultimates. Global Esports currently don't. They need a bit of time to charge. Time is not on their side.
Nicely thrown out before Backwall has that Transcendence. They close off on Spanik. Quick, smart, now finding Mega, and the rest have all started to fall down. Pichu's still sitting on a Transcendence here if need be, and they rotate into those other tank ultimates. Giant are in a great spot here.
They are, but Global Esports now have finally got a push where they can use these ultimates they've been working on for so long. Water finally now has the Graviton Surge. Inhyuk will have another Shatter pretty soon, and it does come down to another Ryan Shatter versus the Winston advantage, which is difficult to block the Shatter out. He needs high value on the Shatter though, because last time again, he only got 1 kill and it wasn't enough.
Double Transcendence is available as well. The real swing point could be Rocket a little bit closer. Spanik low. They decide to get aggressive in this confined space. This is where Primal Rage is dangerous, and they found Inhyuk with it. That is the huge advantage Global Esports had off the table, and I do believe the grab got consumed by Sun Series as well. Suddenly GE Pantheon on the back foot sorely. Giant Esports though, they haven't won it yet. Now with Pichu going down, good trade back, but they lose Mushroom, and it gets dicier and dicier. Inhyuk will rejoin before too long. Self-destruct from Sakura.
Here he is.
Does not find anything as Inhyuk rejoins. Tidawat goes down as well. Earth Shatter doesn't connect, but neither does self-destruct from Sun Series. Now it's Sergeant God's grab. He's got it on the bell. Can they get the follow-up damage though? It's a hard ask with all that healing. In fact, no, they cannot. Sergeant God goes down instead, and suddenly Global Esports, they've got through the worst of it. They have a numbers advantage. They're starting to clean up these kills, and they will just barely get point A.
And the remaining members of Global Esports that did remain on the point held it long enough to maintain that Inhyuk gets back and able to reinforce for the rest of the squad. Giant Esports, they weren't able to clean up all of the attacking members of the Global Esports side, and for Giant, because they were evenly traded out, Global Esports got kills as well. that just wasn't enough. GE Pantheon used a reinforcement respawn advantage in their favor to get that cap, now going to be less than 4 minutes and no real snowball opportunity.
If anyone else had died after Anyhock went down, it would have been absolutely disastrous for Global Esports, so able to steer through that one now. Long rotation here, taking a lot of pain on the way as well. It was maybe a little bit dangerous, and now they're not in a good situation where they can back up.
They do have good support ultimates here. Pichu goes down as well, so it's 6v5.
Stun on T2, but they don't quite finish him off. He has to go sky high just to survive for a little bit longer. Rocket goes down in the interim on the wrong side of this one. Judgment from Anyhock goes wide. Now Giant able to throw in some ultimates, just trying to buff it around back wall here. And they do have a respawn advantage.
Another kill.
But they're still losing members and not getting counter trades. Eventually this will tip the way of GE Pantheon, who are starting to get ultimates.
This is important because Water's about to get the grab.
He was low, he's dead.
And they're still, Giant have not traded members. Giant need a couple of
here. What an excellent placement on the self-destruct, and then the grab. It meant that no one could actually get onto the point. That was so well played by Global Esports, and you've got to say, Giant kind of gave it to them. They let that positioning play out as it did. They didn't really contest. They were unable to get counter trades as well. And when you consider how good the point A defense went, that's just unfortunate.
And Giant just a little too passive, because you see Global Esports going into that B push. Originally, they just had the one support ultimate kind of coming up. Then the second one was built up a little bit later as well. By the time Anyhock was really getting low, they cash in on the Transcendence, and then they start building the tank ultimates because the fight goes long enough. They actually get both of Anyhock and Water's Graviton Surge and the Shatter inside the duration of the fight while picking up a number of kills. It's one kill after another, constantly forcing a 6 versus 5. And for Giant Esports, they never traded backwards. They never got a pick the other way. If they go 1-for-1 for picks here, if they go 1-for-1 for trades, they actually win because of respawn advantages. But because they just never got one, they never got that advantage.
Little unfortunate. Giant had to set themselves up in a winnable position, you'd have to say. Now it's actually a little bit of a tough position. They've got to get a pretty competitive time here. 255 in the bank, nothing to be balked at here. GE Pantheon looking a little bit better shape now. And
it's well salvaged by GE Pantheon as well, because they started out with 4 minutes going into B. It took them the entirety of the 4 minutes going into the overtime just to get A. 1 minute and 5 seconds to cap out B is a phenomenal offense for them. So it kind of makes up for the botched A attempts that they did have. Now going to the defense, this is where things get very interesting, because now you suddenly get to play Spanik on the Doomfist, and now you have a lot of high expectations for what Global Esports can do with that Doomfist.
Pichu, interesting flex here.
But okay.
Yeah, but okay, he's just scouting. He's going to swap onto the Moira here.
Which is great because he sees the Doomfist, so the Moira pick gives him a little bit more survivability with the shift. Something that Zenyatta would be having a good time against.
There we go, first rotation, relatively smooth. It's actually Anyhock who came out the worst of that trade.
Just waiting to see how Giant Esports want to approach this right now, because they're going to be able to rotate free. But eventually when they do get onto the point, Spanik should be able to enter towards the back line. For Medic and Backwall as well, those are going to be the prime targets for Spanik. Sorry, not Medic, Rocket and Peach are the prime targets for Spanik.
Now they go the rotation onto the point, they're healed up, they're ready to go. Nice punch onto Rocket. Takes a lot of pain, but finished up as well. Spanik takes some pain, but he's alive and doing just fine for the time being. So now, how can Giant answer? They've got some decent charge in the pocket of some of these ultimates, but not enough to actually deploy them yet.
They need the Graviton Surge, most importantly here. Coalescence is available, but difficult.
Ooh, nice catch onto Medic and the Coalescence to come out here. They do pop Sun Series Mech. That is a nice find. They even close out on him, but trade off on back wall. And that was an ultimate they sorely needed, especially with Anyhock having used the Primal Rage and now actually quite low. Comes into the fight right in front of T2's Hammer, who has far more supports to help him out. Pichu able to close out on Sakura as well, and Giant definitely have the critical mass of members and the critical mass of kills.
Now watch the EMP placement here. He should be coming in on Spanik.
Oh.
This is why you don't want to be diving in with the meter strike directly into the middle of the team unless he wanted to suicide, unless he wanted to reset, because now Global Esports do look like they're giving this one up. The only problem here is they didn't force a Graviton Surge out of Siegen God, which is going to affect their ability to now defend B. It's going to also give Giant Esports some ability to now be able to snowball in. Mushroom used the rally, that's free, and the other 4 ultimates are starting to come out online. Water needs to do a lot of work on the EMP here, otherwise it's bad news.
Uh-oh.
That's bad news.
Big bad news. They do find backwall though, so it's not terrible, but man, that is a huge ultimate just completely off the table. EMP getting raked across a good number of folk. They immediately convert onto Rocket and Mushroom rather. This Medic going down to the side of GE Pantheon. Giant, man, I bet they wish they had that grab now. Sergeant God eats a fist. Weather the Storm for Nalbo. Big Earth Shatter connects onto Spanik, trying to get the save in. The Judge does not connect. Spanik has to pull back, and Pixie goes down. Meanwhile, in the thick of the fight, Sergeant God as well gets fixed, and it all starts to fall apart for Giant. No snowball today.
And that's the thing, having your grab, unfortunately eaten by the defense matrix. I don't know where the Tobal scene went. That's what I heard in the sound cue. And for Global Esports now, the EMP being used directly on top of the rest. Tito doesn't connect enough to the Shadow, does get counted out by the Transcendence backwall. Notably, they did not kill Spanik, which is probably the most important member for them to actually get down, has the highest kill pressure on the GE Pantheon side. Giant, this is a big reset that they don't want to have to go into.
Good find on, I believe that was Water of the distance. He translocates back, so he is fine. He's not going to get all that free harass.
Slippery. Here's Water, and he's about to get another EMP here. Spanik's going to stay alive with the Meteor Strike, you'd imagine. And Hyok on the Hammond here is great for disruption as well. Here comes the mines.
There it is. It only separated out one member though, which is pretty less than ideal. But Tito right on the field takes a lot of pain, gets closed out as well. Meteor Strike slams down on Pichu. No real counter trades to come in, only losing Sakura's mech there. This is where Giant kind of need to pull up their socks a little bit. This is where they've often started to look a little lost.
You can see their Spanik's placement on the Meteor Strike. It was a little risky. In fact, Hyok, that's a little risky, actually dying to Sun Series as the Baby Diva. That's slightly embarrassing as well. But for Spanik there, because he sees that Giant Esports were already feeling damaged, he lands a Meteor Strike down, picks up Pichu, and then immediately Mushroom goes for the Shield Bash, but not enough members from Giant Esports alive to actually stop and actually kill Spanik. Just waiting for the remake for Sun Series, and then Giant Esports should be re-pushing.
That's the thing, they can't afford to wait for their mech with how the timing of that turned out. I mean, look at that, back in the mech right as the team is ready to fight. It means they preserve the self-destruct.
And Hyok right now is the Hammond doesn't have super high value, but he does have a minefield, so...
Yeah, and that's a nano boost on a Doomfist. Caught up in a grab though, nicely placed. Self-destruct tossed in there as well. Will find and Hyok traded for Tito. You'll take that trade if you're GE Pantheon with the respawn advantage, especially now as Rocket goes down, and they're just not able to ever stem this bleeding Giant. Never getting enough of a kill advantage, even just shy of a third here. Good team-mech onto Sakura despite the Transcendence. But again, they still need more kills and they're not able to close them out. In fact, losing Sun Series mech, they're still at a deficit.
And Spanik's so good at being able to play Pixie. He actually goes down a Mushroom, which is important for Giant Esports. But as that gets traded out, Sun Series loses his life, so does Rocket. This is now possibly going to be a full reset. Giant don't have the members.
It will be. They've only got 1/3 in this time. What is this commit? They're staying in this hold up. It's going to work out though as they get a D-mech on Sakura. They're starting to rally back together. Some of those early deaths have rejoined the fray. Spanik has the nano, but stunned up, drop down. Beautiful timing from Mushroom. Again, really just showing his worth on the Brigida. And Giant staying in has paid off. I think it took GE Pantheon a little bit by surprise, who maybe expected a reset. Now a grab to try and come out across these members that are EMP'd up. They catch any shot in that one, trade it back for Tito. Need to finish Spanik again. They D-mech Sakura off to the side, and they're keeping control of the fight now, even as they lack Tito. Uh-oh, that is a huge pick. Sergeant God has really held down the fort so far, but the rest of Giant are still here and kicking, and they're still collecting kills.
We need to start seeing a few more picks from both sides now. Giant Esports, they have the sustain. Pichu's about to get another Transcendence. If he gets that, they should be able to camp off the back of it.
There's another minefield, but this one's been handily avoided. Self-destruct placed decently, but doesn't get anyone. They rejoin the fight, get back onto the point. Hyok's just being a real pain for them right now. But Giant have regrouped. Beautiful timing on the Transcendence from Pichu. Everyone's going to get nicely healed up. Water making a late change onto the Bastion just as a last ditch, but he can't contest the point. As soon as backwall's done here, I believe that might be it. The last gasp, the last hurrah. Hyok will go in. He will go down. This is a cap just waiting to happen.
It's going to be a decent time delay though from Global Esports.
There we go.
They still get about double-ish the amount of time in the actual time bank itself. But we can see that Pichu playing a bit of MVP, the original Transcendence, which allowed the side of Giant Esports to maintain control, to maintain the sustain onto the point. It started to look a little bit dicey there. As Sergeant got super low, you're expecting, okay, he goes down, and then suddenly after that, there's no more reason for Giant Esports to maintain, but because they started to have ultimates coming online from the support point of view, they're able to sustain everybody. After the Transcendence, well, they're able to get a few more picks. If they don't get the picks inside the Transcendence, they probably end up wasting that Transcendence and then they have to back off anyway. But because they start to trade more in their favor, Spanic goes down as well. Revives, gets no kills, goes down very quickly to Mushroom. And then towards the end, Pichu gets another Transcendence, which just keeps Giant Esports in the fight for longer and longer and longer. And Global Esports not able to make the correct trades. You're starting to see a little bit of the same. When Global Esports made their final push onto B, it was basically the same kind of deal. They just had the defense not making any valuable trades towards the end there after the second Transcendence. Global Esports not making any valuable trades, and eventually they just don't have the members to contest.
Like I said, I think there was actually a point there where GE Pantheon were maybe expecting a retreat that never came, and were looking to go in for a rout, overextended just a touch. A couple of members did. Got picked off by Mushroom and Saiyajin God.
And by the way, Saiyajin God dodged the EMP, so he never got caught in it. Then gets to use a Graviton Surge. Huge plays. Now going to the time bank, Giant do attack first, about 1 minute and 25. Pichu's just going to scout. Doesn't see the Doomfist, goes into the Zenyatta, knows it's going to be safe.
Smart call. Now Giant in a mirrored Goats comp here. Done decently in the mirror so far.
You don't want to waste too much time. Giant are posturing for too long here. They need to start moving.
There it is. They actually get aggressive. They're not making a rotation. They want to fight in this doorway. A little bit dangerous. Now they're split up. Titawat low, and they actually had to leave Sun Series out to dry. He's able to pull back his team though, but this is a lot of time lost.
It is. You've only got about 1 minute 30 to start with, and a third of that is already gone. Giant have barely walked past the double doors. Global Esports just holding this choke so effectively.
Now they again make the move, they fake it out, they don't go for the rotation, they're still just looking for a fight. This is a very aggressive way to play for Giant, and unfortunately it's not paid off here. Sun Series with that Discord orb on him has to back up way, way far back. 30 seconds left. GE Pantheon going for a rout. Need to be careful not to overextend.
And honestly, there's no good reason for Giant Esports to want to take a fight at the doors. They should be looking for the rotation. They want to be fighting on the point. They want to have objective pressure. Even if they win the fight at double doors, they then still have to rotate on point anyway, so just do that first.
But now they can't afford to make that rotation. They can't make the slow play with only 10 seconds. Man, someone's got to touch this point. What's going on? They're in a grab. No one's going to get there. That is such a heartbreak.
Someone's there.
Someone's managed to get there just at the 11th hour, and that's actually forced Global Esports to come back. They're all caught in a grab. Nice placement, but Titawat goes down. Where are the kills? They haven't been able to come through. Backwall had a Transcendence too early there. No counter trades yet from Giant. They do have a closer respawn though, and no one else has died. No, not anymore. Pichu is down. Nice sound barrier from Medic, and a self-destruct drops off Rocket. Saiyajin God surrounded, drops down. No third, nothing to show for their work from Giant. And just too aggressive there. They had time for one slow play, chose to make 3 fast ones, and none of them worked.
And Titawat dies there at about 98% towards the Shadow as well. Just really, really unfortunate. Comes back, the entire team is already dead, and then the ultimate's starting to come online because it is Goats versus Goats at 3-3s here. With 1 minute 30, you do see the ultimates come into play a lot more effectively because of the high health pools, and a reasonable amount of time brawling means people are going to get the Graviton Surges. You saw both the Graves being used there, so both the Transcendences being used there as well. Medic nearly went down in the middle of the Transcendence, but you could just see him staying alive. Rocket tries to save with the sound barrier. Unfortunately, doesn't do enough there. Medic then responds with the sound barrier, and then Global Esports clean up. But yeah, Giant Esports, unfortunately, they got stuck at the doors for too long. 1 minute 30. Just trying to break through that opening choke, and could not do it. Most teams just try and rotate straight away. I will say that maybe they did try, and maybe it was Global Esports Hispanic there on the Brigida with Inyok on the right, just catching them out. But for Giant Esports, they had to find a way past, because taking the fight there was never going to work out well.
That's the thing. I mean, you play into such a favorable position for the defense when you take a fight at the doors like that. That's why teams make the long rotation. I understand the thought process there, I think, from Giant was to go, okay, we don't have much time. If we take 3 of these fights, odds are we win 1 of them, but it doesn't quite work out that way.
By the way, Inyok scouting with the Sonic Arrow here is really important, because they can expect that possibly Giant want to make a cheese play here with the Goats. Doesn't see anything. Medic's probably going to scout as well. Likely to change.
Yep.
And this is great because they can play for the full 2 minutes and 40 seconds. They will get Earth Shatter, and that will be an advantage against either one.
That's the thing, they scout the Winston. That being said, Giant did do decently with this on the defense. Global Esports making the same kind of play here, though. The slow plays weren't working out for them when they were making them in the initial phase, so they don't quite go for the same
Titawat's out of position.
Titawat's way separated from the team here. Looking a little bit dicey, but collapse a bit from Giants, and now suddenly Global Esports are in a bit of an awkward position.
Global Esports still have all members alive. Titawat's still at the back right now. He's got to get back to his own team.
There we go. This has allowed the fight to get up to the point, though, so the pressure's on for Giant. Someone's got to touch this! What's going on? Oh, man, that came in almost too late here, and it's given Global Esports so much free spam damage time. D-Mech comes out, and Jog did go down, though, and now Spanik as well. Transcenders from Backball just a second too late, but not for Water. He's having to scoop up kills. Saiyajin God has really got to make his presence known here. Has to match Water. Throws out the grab. Oh no! Eaten by Sakura, but they still got the kill. Self-destruct zones them off, and they're able to come back in. And now they're cleaning up the rest of the members. Giant, they've got a long walk back, but they've got some late kills, and they will be able to regroup.
That was such a close call for Giant Esports there. Global Esports, though, they're allowed to reset here because they had double the time back at Giant Esports, and also a lot of desperation ults used it. Great Graviton Surge by Saiyajin God. Actually, no, not a great Graviton Surge because it got eaten.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. He did
great
have
timing.
Great timing, yeah. He should have used it. That was correct. Didn't get the value out of it. Still won the team fight regardless. But the point here is, because he no longer has it, Water has a huge advantage, and Antioch's about to get the shatter as well.
Now just looking to get aggressive. T1 wants to play Disrupt. Global Esports will not play into that. They're not going to get into that confined space where T1 is so dangerous to them. Instead, that ultimate is just going to run down without T1 getting too much.
Saiyajin close.
That's a little bit dicey. Water does throw down his grab first. Double self-destructs in. T1's the first casualty of the fight. Saiyajin God's got to get a big grab here. Earthshatter from Anyshot, not great. The rocket's down. Pichu, his Transcendence about to run out. There's that grab again from Saiyajin God. Got eaten. Can you believe it? 2 for 2. Sakura absolutely massive here with that Diva. And it all falls apart for Giant now. Sun Series dead and off the point. T1 trying to barrel back on the Wrecking Ball. Will be able to get there for a late contest, but it is only pittance to the clock. 15 seconds remaining, but Global Esports have control. Global Esports have the point, and Global Esports take it to match point.
That is such an unfortunate way for Giant to end, but you can sort of see the foundations being laid out there by Global Esports as well. It's very different from what we saw in Numbani, where on the time bank offense for Giant Esports, they were able to get some progress, which means, I mean, they can't draw at that stage. The best result actually becomes a win. This time around, that defense, the best result becomes a draw because they didn't actually have any progress to play with. Global Esports smell the blood into the waters. They have double the time, which is a lot more of an advantage compared to the 30-second or so advantage they had in Numbani. Definitely make use of it. If they didn't have that advantage, you could see they actually got routed about the 1 minute 30 mark. They actually lost a full fight. But because they had the extra 1 minute 30, they're allowed to lose that fight, come back in with the ultimates they get from Goats anyway, and then win the subsequent one. They get a full extra attempt that Giant did not have.
And it's one of those maps that it's almost a bit frustrating to watch if you're a Giant fan, because all the groundwork was there. They had an incredible defense on point A. They actually set themselves up for a full hold, didn't quite execute correctly on the final fight, and then got completely snowballed out. And immediately you go from nearly full holding to a massive time back. That was 1 minute and 5 seconds that it took for Global Esports Pantheon to cap point B on their offense, which is a bit of a mistake from Giant. It was the lack of counter trades. It was playing right into the positioning as well that Pantheon was setting up for, among a series of other things. And it's also good play out of Pantheon. Let's absolutely not downplay that. But then you've also got the time bank here where, I'll be honest, Giant didn't really do themselves many favors on the offense. And it just meant, look, even on the defense where they did actually play decently, let's ignore those 2 eaten grabs because you can just say that's good play from Pantheon. You've still got to go back to the fact that on the offense in time bank, they didn't do themselves any favors, and it did cost them.
I think both teams there had unfortunate defenses on B. I think that's quite clear.
Yes.
Neither team really, well, definitely Global Esports had a much better hold onto B because they had one, whereas for Giant Esports, they kind of just ended up letting B go entirely on that first attempt for Global Esports offense. Both the defenses, though, eventually just got whittled down. The offenses just kept staying in.
Yeah. And
that's kind of the advantage with Goats is you do have extremely good sustain, especially if you have double support ultimates, which both teams use to great effect. But going into time back, there is Global Esports playing extremely well on both the offense and defense. Defensively, they knew with only a minute 30, the Giant didn't have a lot of room for error there. If they fail a couple of, or just one push really, they don't have a lot of time to reset. They're going to lose in terms of ultimates as well because in 130, the first ultimates are probably going to come online for Global Esports because they win the initial skirmish. And then when you flip the tables and then you go into the other side of time bank as well, the double grab eat, the first one is a little bit more excusable because Saiyajin God and his team Giant ended up winning that defense that first fight anyway. But the second one was so devastating. It would have potentially been a bit of a game changer. That grab, you can never underestimate how big grabs are in a GOATS versus GOATS composition, and having the second one eaten was probably the final nail in the coffin for that offense.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate truth of it as well. I mean, it's this two-factor thing, right? It's never just one thing. It's Giant, unfortunately, not always coming through on what they've set themselves up for. You know, it's that defense on point A, it's all that kind of stuff. But it's also Pantheon just playing really well. Pantheon being able to get both of those grabs with the defense matrix. It is good play by the D.Va. Like, that doesn't happen by accident. That happens because your D.Va player is keeping an eye on the Zarya, knowing when they're probably going to look to make a grab play and keeping track of those ultimates, knowing that there is likely a grab available. So, like I said, doesn't happen by accident. This all being said, look, that was still relatively competitive, and this has been a relatively competitive series so far. We now go back onto a payload map, and it was Giant who won our last payload map. I think this is still very potentially winnable for them. It'll be Control where they have to turn it back around if we do get that far, but I definitely don't think GE Pantheon necessarily have this in the bag yet.
Yeah, neither team really feels like they've edged the other one just yet. If you were going to say somebody, right now the 2-1 score would suggest Global Esports. You'd have to give that to them.
But it could just as easily be 1-1 with a draw.
You look at Busan, that was a 2-1. You look at Numbani, that went to time back, very close, comparable times. You look at then Hanamura, it's slightly more favored. There was double the time back, so 3 minutes versus 1:30, but both teams went to the time bank. So far we've played essentially the entirety of every single map on Busan. We got all 3 stages. Again, time back on both Numbani and Hanamura means we played out the full distance on all of the maps so far.
One thing I do want to say is it does feel like Giant have a bit more room to play with, more room to grow. And I think if they're playing cleaner, they're firing on all cylinders, and they're making less mistakes, they can actually still come out the top here. In fact, might even be the better team, but they aren't quite playing at that point yet. Now moving on to Dorado is their last opportunity to kick it up that notch, hit that point of consistent strength, and then I think actually we could see ourselves going to the tiebreaker.
And I think this is where potentially Kefri does come back in, because especially on Dorado, Widowmaker is somewhat of a more valuable pick, especially on the A and B points. Padapan definitely had a great showing on there. But across both this map and Route 66, both of them do kind of have a lot of space for Widowmaker to work with. So if you're going to see Kefri back, this is probably going to be the one you do see him in. It's probably going to be Water and Kefri together. But last week, I believe on map 4, Spanik also played that one. So it's still up for debate. It could be anybody coming in. We haven't seen Kadalis in yet. That he might not come in at all today. I mean, there's a potential where Global Esports are now going for more of a 7-man setup rather than an 8-man. It's a lot harder to juggle 4 DPSs than 3. Talent Esports have seemingly found this formula where 3 works quite well from them. And Global Esports looking at that thinking, well, that's something we can do too.
Well, speaking of changes up as well, let's also actually talk of the other side of that. We mentioned it very briefly earlier, but Giant are actually putting Saiyajin God back onto DPS, which was originally something he used to play. Not something we've seen him play at this sort of level of competitive play, but he's shown his chops, let's be completely honest, and Zarya is no slouch as well, partially due to a lot of that tank play he's had, and this does seem to be working for Giant.
And I'll be honest though, Saiyajin God, to be fair, he's been on the Zarya, and Zarya is a DPS position, at least for the season when you are playing GOATS, and Kefri is going to be back in with the Widowmaker as expected. And last season when Saiyajin God was on Xavier, he was technically DPS as well. So here we go on this first defense here.
You ready to see some bell tower grabs?
Well, the thing is, we have some very good Widows now that we've seen in this tournament. And Kefri, well, he's a very good Widow as well. He's going to try and prove that he's the best.
Water able to open up on that Pharah as well. Much more comfortable for him. Kefri's got a decent sideline here.
If anything, he could probably say he has the most hours on Widowmaker across all of them in the tournament, but right now, this opening push, the shields are going to be a bit of a problem as T1 and the rest of Giant push through the archway. This is where it's difficult for, I say difficult, but he threads the needle.
Yeah, managed to find that one, and that's the danger of the Widowmaker. That's the threat that the Widowmaker has been holding down those sight lines. Sun Series goes down. Actually, very aggressive commit from Water. They can kind of afford to here. This is a really unfortunate spot for Giant that ends up being almost a full team wipe, or at least a delayed one.
Look at this straight away. Saiyajin got into the Genji, T1 onto the Winston. They've seen this before. They don't want to lose to the Fire Widow again. And this is smart. Pichu even going to go, Mushroom even going to go onto the Tracer. First time we're seeing Mushroom play a DPS. This is the dive that I wanted to see on Busan, and they're going to do it. It's a straight classic dive. Tracer Genji. I've not seen this for a long time, and surely I have missed it.
Actually, I do think we've seen Mushroom on Tracer briefly, but more just as kind of a last-ditch contest sort of thing, or, you know, when they're out of ideas. So it'll be interesting to see how well they execute on this.
This is so good from Giant Esports. If this doesn't work, then surely nothing will unless one of them wants to counter-snipe. But so far, they have to find one of the DPSs unless Kefri finds them first.
That's some ragdoll right there as he goes flying on forward, and this is a lot of pressure laid down onto Pixie as well, as eventually going to go down. Suddenly the rest of this team might just have to flag a retreat. They haven't exactly got counter trades.
You can see that Tito was kind of positioning to try and jump on top of Kefri. He sees that. He just knows how to play against the Winston, and I want to really highlight the duo here as well. Water now gets the clean up across both a Pharah and a Widowmaker.
Dies again.
They have the opportunity to just clean up damage, whether that's Kefri landing a really good headshot or body shot on a player, and then Water's rockets cleaning that player up, or vice versa. Water lands a lot of splash damage or some rocket damage, and then Kefri cleans it up with a nice Widowmaker shot between both the DPSs, which both benefit from the damage boost of Medic onto the Mercy. It's a very powerful duo.
And Tito dying twice before Giant had even been able to reset. I mean, look at this. Almost a full Christmas tree for Global Esports Pantheon. He got down early, though. This is something. This is an opening, not with that rocket barrage on Sergeant God. Hold on a second. Counter trade, though. And this is starting to look decent for Giant. They also had that closer respawn. We must not forget that. Self-destruct, sky high. Good closeout.
Oh, no, minute.
1-for-1 with the Divas, and that's big now for Giant. They're in a much more favorable position than before, even when losing Pichu. They've kind of steered through the worst, but it's only Water really in the mix of this one. Nosiest to get out of here.
And that was such a difficult place for Global Esports to be, because they finally lost a player, playing 6 versus 5 as well. Mushroom actually misses the pulse bomb.
Little unfortunate, Primal Rage was there. As he jumped up into the air, the cap goes over. Now Global Esports, they're in deep, they've committed, but this is not something you want to stay in on, even with the kill on Sergeant God. This could end up being a rout.
They actually are in a decent position though. Kefri's back into the mix. Water was still alive from the previous engagement. And at this sort of point, the 6v5, they can play quite close. They can make sure the cart doesn't get good movement yet, putting a lot of pressure even onto Sun Series. It will still be very difficult for Giant to actually dive on top of Kefri, especially if Water's on a different angle, applying different pressure from somewhere else.
The crossfire from these two, and just the number of kills Water has got on these squishy, even high mobility members, able to get just one shot, a second shot, and suddenly they're out of the picture. This guy's consistency on Pharah is insane.
And Mushroom's actually swapped onto the Brigadier here, so their ability to dive is a lot worse, but at the same point, here comes a
oh,
here goes the blade.
Water again, and now has a rocket barrage. Not that he even needs it, because Giant are in full retreat.
Can I just say, justice is served there. Water gets the revenge kill against the Dragon Blade from Sergeant God. The same one that Sergeant God and Mushroom denied against him on Numbani. And Sergeant God is done playing games. It's going to be Super McCree time. It's not going to be the flashbang dash combo, but it will at least be hit scan damage against Water, and maybe even a little bit more pressure against Kefri from long range.
Start calling that bash bang, I guess, but at any rate, needs to displace Water or Medic, ideally both. There's the barrage.
Nice bubble.
Up a little bit. Tito does go down as the Sun Series mech, but Water traded his life out for that one now. If Sergeant God can get unlocked, they might be in an okay spot here, but yeah, Kefri's still just doing so much damage. The flashbang onto the Diva isn't your ideal target. There's still all these tanks here, keeping in Giant's face.
That's the problem with Giant Esports. They're so focused on Water here, they forgot about Dre and Kefri, and it's something you don't want to do. He's still managing to get shots in here. Giant have still now just finally getting a little bit of cart push in, but Kefri using him for sight. Water's back into play. Double support ultimates available. Giant Esports, they lose Sergeant God straight away.
Man, once again. And they've got barely any cart progress in all this time as well. Even now as they've started getting sub, it's just not much. Primal Rage pop from Tito, but he's had a Discord orb on him that whole time. Eats a chunk of pain. Still hasn't really got topped up and hasn't really been able to regroup much either. Pichu needs to commit this. No, he does go down. Chose not to commit this. But, I mean, what's the plan here for Giant? Are they just going to let themselves continue to be separated?
They have to reset here. Because Sergeant God was respawning, I mean, there's a chance there that Pichu actually does use the Transcendence and then Giant can regroup with them. But right now, they're being stagger killed. And Hyok's looking for a little bit more, so is Water. And Giant Esports, they need to regroup as 6 because they actually have ultimates, but they don't have a chance to use them as long as someone keeps dying. And with Kefri pushed up, and with Kefri looking for more frags, it's likely it's going to be another 6v5 in favor of Pantheon.
It's going to be a tough push to make all the way as well. A lot of distance to go, very little time, only just really getting back onto it now, and if they lose one fight, they are donezo. Self-destruct board from Sakura. Rocket Barrage onto Rocket. Nice block from Sun Series to force that death onto Water. Pichu pops Transcendence, and Giant are in a decent spot here. Didn't get much for the rest of their ult.
Overtime.
Suddenly, neither have Global Esports Pantheon. No one quite the better of it yet, but the card is moving.
And as we get to the final stages as well, Water swapping onto the Zarya now. And the final push from Giant Esports. Barely any ults on either side. The picks are going to be so important.
Self-destruct up in the air, not able to get that headshot onto the D-Mech member.
That one.
Nice find on Mushroom, though. You're happy to take that. Kefri's pretty safe here for the time being. Pressure is on Giant to be getting the kills, but they're just surrounded, taking so much damage on all sides. If anyone pops out for too long, Kefri finds them. Gio got even shot T1's feet up from under the cart. That's such an unfortunate way to die, but the reality is they'd already taken so much damage, they weren't able to heal themselves back up, and they weren't getting counter trades either.
And T1 enjoy the trip there is what Kefri says to him. It's going to be a hold onto B.
I get it.
And a decent hold as well. It was a decent push. You can see the cart nearly made it to the terminal. 4B nearly got to the checkpoint. I just want to say this combo right now between the Fire and the Widowmaker of Water and Kefri, it is so difficult, especially on a map that actually favors Widowmaker sightlines, that actually has a high enough skybox and open space for a Fire to deal with.
Exactly.
You play any maps like that, and it's suddenly very difficult. Now, if we go on to C, that's when I have to question, what does Water and Kefri play from there? I think they probably go to Goats. Kefri probably doesn't play the Widowmaker on C anymore because it's too enclosed. It just doesn't give you the angles you want. But at the same time, they really utilize the composition and the heroes where they are best on A and B. So we never get to see what that last point looks like. We never get to see what Global Esports was going to do. But that's actually a great boon for future games and future matches, because now teams that want to scout them out don't get to see how they would have adapted when we get on C.
Element of surprise. It's good to see Global Esports as well. With the week that they've now actually had with Kefri, they've really kind of worked out some ways they can play in with this hero pool. This is, I mean, it's not super inventive. It's just, it just feels very logical to utilize these picks out of Kefri and Water in the way that they have.
Yeah, and it's the passive damage. It's just the fact that he gets to constantly shoot you, and it's so difficult for you to contest him. And even on this attack, it's going to be very much the same thing. In fact, I would argue it's even more difficult for Giant Esports to contest Kefri now while they're attacking.
Very little you can do about that sightline. You almost wonder if there's a point where someone on Giant wants to swap off and just straight up contest Kefri head to head, but if they don't have a solid enough Widow play, then they kind of can't even do that.
And to be honest, you might even consider just running a Sombra or something, someone that could just dive on top of Kefri, just constantly shooting him, because as long as he's doing free damage, as long as he's also distracting for Water or vice versa, they're able to just work together so well with the two DPSs.
Water finally opens it up. They find Pichu. I mean, both these DPSs are so dangerous. Like, as much as we talk about Kefri, suddenly it's Water doing the work. And we talk about Water, and suddenly it's Kefri doing the work. And there it is, Water again, just all over that kill feed. And gets two with one rocket. What a guy.
You see the attention from Giant Esports. They're trying to think right now, who do we go for? As soon as they try and pressure out Kefri, Water is unattended and he's getting so much free damage. As soon as they try and pressure out Water, Kefri is unattended and he gets so much free damage. No matter who you go on, somebody is shooting you for free. Somebody is doing way too much damage. Somebody's picking up the kills.
The reality is, Giant's Goats is just not equipped for this kind of composition on this kind of map with all the ways that globally.
Now it's all Kefri.
Position and play it, and exactly, now it's all Kefri. They focus on Water, Kefri gets the work done, the cap's going to come through.
They're just tag teaming in and out. One time it's Water all over the kill feed, then it's Kefri all over the kill feed. They share that moment, they share the spotlight so well, and for Giant Esports, they're running out of ideas. Saijin God, he's getting desperate, he wants to counter snipe, but can you really counter snipe Kefri here? That is such a dangerous prospect.
This is the first we've seen of Saijin God on this as well, so it's going to be very, very tough to, I mean, even just measure up. The fact that he's not played it thus far.
That's why you don't do it.
Hasn't even fired one shot yet, and he is dead. Now it's all Kefri.
Unless you got 1,200 hours on Widow, don't try it. And Water right now, it's his turn. Tag team, slap that hand.
Jeez, it's just going to be, I mean, the tank line is absolutely deconstructed there. Kefri still keeping the sight line on lockdown. Saijin God, I mean, What can Giant even do?
And by the way, Global Esports have 4 of the ultimates that they haven't needed to use because both Kefri and Water just keep getting so much kills. What are you meant to do here? I mean, you're Giant Esports, like you said, you're waiting for ultimates, you're waiting for double supports here, but you're getting picked out so effectively. You're just going to be forced to use them at the worst possible times.
Feels like it's only a matter of time before Kefri finds one, threads the needle, gets a headshot, there it is on Rocket. Oh, I never get tired of watching this, I tell you. Who's next? Oh, he gets bumped back actually. My God.
Solo Primal Rage.
No, he's going to be back
That's how much
on.
they want him.
Does at least open up Sergeant God for a moment, but it's only a moment. He's only got 1 to show for it. Kefri finally goes down. Giant, they're kind of getting a bit of a second wind here, but might be a short-lived one. They picked off back wall, have to wait out the self-destruct from Sakura. Now they come back into the fight. Oh, Sergeant God is actually really starting to prove his worth here now on this Widow. Doesn't quite finish off the D-Mech Sakura, but he'll take the D-Mech.
You don't want to anger this god today because right now he actually does have that infra side available as that cut's about to reach the end point. This is the first fight the Giant actually truly win and force a full retreat and a full reset from Global Esports. 4 ultimates used by Global Esports there. A full Primal Rage committed just against Kefri. Ends up being worth it. I mean, Kefri has no response against the solo Primal. But right now, both infra sites means both Widowmakers probably just want to wait this one out.
And it does ultimately feel like a matter of time. It feels like Giant have got some momentary reprieve. I mean, it's only a matter of time until Kefri or Water finds another big string of kills, and there's not any more room to play with for Giant.
Still waiting for Water here right now. It's actually a lot more dangerous for him. The one Widowmaker pick kind of applies pressure on both DPSs, but Water's already done damage.
Yeah, now it's just Pichu, who's already so low. Kefri finds Sage and God. And now it's all over but the crying, I dare say, unless Rocket somehow manages to rescue this cart. Look at this, Pichu knows he can't even peek here. Dead before he gets to it. There's the sound barrier though. Rocket, actually they've found back wall, but they need to get more members on here as Rocket goes down. Mushroom, he needs to at least get some damage, some kills, goes down to Inhyok. The Rez is there on back wall as well. So no skin on Global Esports Pantheon's nose yet. Sakura finds one with self-destruct. Kefri finds the mech, and it's all done.
A 3-1 victory, and this was easily the most dominant map. Look, I thought Busan, the last 2 stages, the last 2 rounds there, looked good. This Dorado was absolutely filthy from start to finish. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Kefri's still undefeated in Contenders.
And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Group B still has only had 3-1 results. The 1 win from Mega there on Numbani is the only win they'll get here. We get 3 on the side of G-Pad. That is the only... Is there a gentleman's agreement between these teams to we must preserve this scoreline?
All I gotta say is 100% win rate, by the way. I don't want to speak for the guy, but I'm pretty sure he's having a great time right now. He's surrounded by 5 excellent players, and he's able to jump into these games where, look, he's just basically untouchable.
He's being enabled, and it's working.
I want to see him go up against someone like Perfect in the Widowmaker versus Widowmaker. I mean... Patapan, but he's on the other group.
Yeah,
so that's
like eventually, at some point in this tournament, Kefri, Patapan, that's a head-to-head that I
think they're the 2. They look like the 2 best Widowmakers in this tournament so far.
I just really want to see Patapan dominate Kefri.
Maybe. That's going to be an interesting matchup, and that's if Kefri even plays. You don't even know when, what maps he's going to come in.
They have a head-to-head. They just spend the entire day dodging Patapan.
That day, Kefri doesn't play to maintain his 100% win rate. But what we do remember is, if you go back to last season in the season, well, really, realistically, just last season with Monster Shield Korea, Perfect did bring out the Widowmaker as it was still still in a bit of double sniper there. Widowmaker was still a pretty favorable pick, and he had a pretty good one back then. So when Hong Kong Attitude do eventually match up with Global Esports, unless I'm already wrong, they have matched up.
They have?
No, actually they have. I'm wrong. That was the week Kefri wasn't here, so never mind.
Oh man, are you kidding me?
Beat them 3-1 already.
I don't know. Maybe a semi-final. Maybe they'll be able to meet in a semi-final.
Let's do a show match.
Yeah, can we just do like
jump into a custom lobby Widow 1v1 headshots
free for all with Patapan,
Chateau Guillard, chuck all the best Widows on there and see what happens.
I mean, can we just the Pacific Widow free for all,
something like that? But that does wrap up our opening match, and congratulations once again to Global Esports for picking up that win 3-1. That puts Giant, unfortunately, on 0-3. And they're going to have to try and settle that one next week. But coming up next, we do still have another match. And it's going to be Phoenix versus Hong Kong Attitude. So make sure you stay tuned. You don't want to go anywhere, and that's coming up next.